In this video, we're going to explore the build to job function as part of Sabre ETO. The goals of this video is to look at the job setup and to determine whether or not that's going to build you a production order or whether or not that would insert and build you an assembly order. We will look at how to create a production order that's linked to your planning lines, and we will also look at the job setup and how to create a linked assembly order within the system. So here we are inside of our Business Central. So the first thing that I want to look at is I want to look at the job setup. So if we scroll down here, we can see in the Sabre ETO area, you have the ability to indicate the build order type. So if we drop down that list there, we have the ability to see that we can either have that function mean that you're going to create a production order or create an assembly order. So in this first demonstration, I'm going to leave this as a production order. We have the ability to indicate whether or not we want a separate production order for each planning line. So that gives me the ability to create one production order with multiple production order lines if I have multiple planning lines selected. Or I can select multiple planning lines, and then when I use the build to order function, it's going to create me a unique production order for each of those planning lines that were selected. I have the ability to indicate the default production order status. So again, if I'm an organization that wants to start my production orders in the firm plan status, sort of build up a queue of the to-do production orders, and then change the status to released when I actually release that job to the shop floor, I may want to have my default production order status be firm planned. Again, not a lot, but a few production order environments I've seen, they just use the release status so that they can put consumption, output, things like of the posting nature to the production order. So for the sake of example today, I'm going to leave this as the firm plan default production order status. You also have the ability as to whether or not you want to post production job journal automatically. So again, if this is turned on, when I do the output of the linked production order, it's going to increase my on-hand for the finished good, but then immediately issue that on-hand value to my job journal. It will also issue the cost associated with that production order to the job ledger entries and the usage on my job. And again, that's going to do that automatically. So those are the job setups that are going to support the build to job function. And again, whether or not we want the build to job to create us a production order or an assembly order. So just as a recap, the job setup is available as a suite option. So it is something that you would get if you're using the premium subscription of Sabre ETO. Again, it's located under the job setup. And here we see highlighted those production order job setups that are supported, that were just highlighted previously inside of Business Central. So now what we're going to do is we're going to jump back into the software, and I'm going to do a demo of creating a production order from a planning line within a job. So here we are inside of Business Central, and the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to navigate to my jobs list. And I'll open up a job here. So I'm going to highlight here on my furniture, and under manage, I'm going to go into my BOM planning lines. And just a reminder here, all of our Sabre ETO functionality is under the BOM planning lines. That has all the extra features of being able to use not only the build to job function, but the buy to job, relief from inventory, many different features there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an item here. I'll do the 1925W. That's a produced item. It's got a bill of material. It's got a routing. I'm going to add a location here. Let's say they want one of these conference bundles here. So as I scroll over, you'll be able to see that there's no information about a build order number, build order line number. So this will populate with the production order information once I use my build to job function. So if I scroll over here, I can indicate this line is plan ready. And under actions, procurement, I can indicate that I would like to build to job. So it's asking me here, do I want to create a new production order, or I can choose to add a line to an existing production order. So for the purposes of this, I'm just going to say okay to a new production order. So it's going ahead here, it's creating the production order, it's refreshed the production order to create the lines, and here we can see a firm plan production order was created. It gave it a production order number, it used the item number that I had indicated on my BOM planning lines, it used the quantity, and then if I had indicated a date, it would have that pull through as well. We can see here that it created the line for us. It pulled the location off of the planning line, and I can drill in here and I can see the components that have come in based on the bill of material. And I can also see the routing that was created as part of the bill of material, or sorry, as part of the item. Okay. If we look at our production order on the line now, we can see if we scroll over that there is that reference now on the BOM planning line. So I can see the same build order number, which is the firm plan production order that was created. I can see the line number. I can see that it's in the firm plan status. So as I progress that production order and I change the status to, for example, release it, my BOM planning line reference automatically updates as well. From the BOM planning line, I can always click on that build order number and drill directly into the firm planned production order. I could then edit this information. I could make a change if I needed to. And then again, as I'm making updates to this order, as for example, let's say I'm changing the status to released, I can see here that my production order has changed from being firm plan to released. And if I look back on my BOM planning line, I can see that my status, so these changes are dynamic. You constantly have the updates and changes to your production order on the BOM planning line as it's linked to it. So again, just a bit of a recap on production orders as they pertain to the build to job function. So again, on the setup, we had the ability to indicate if it was for assembly or production. And then as you've seen, if we've indicated that we want the build to job function to be a production order, you can indicate whether or not you want the default status to be firm planned or released. We had the ability to see whether or not we wanted to post the production automatically or not. And we also have the ability to see job ledger entries. So just as a little update on that, we can jump back in, and what we'll do is we'll post some production order. So we'll see the output happen, and we'll see it automatically issue to the job that it's linked to, and we'll also be able to see the ledger entries. So here I am back in my released production order. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill into the item card just to show you guys the ledger entries and the value. So right now, if I go and I look at that item card, so I can see my inventory is 0 for this specific item. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go into my production journal, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to post the output quantity. So I'm going to go ahead and click post here. So my journal line successfully posted. My items were set to being back flushed. So if I go back and I drill into that item now, and I select from full list, I'm able to see that I still have 0 on hand, and if I drill in and click on my item ledger entries, I can see here that this is the output that was done on this production order, and immediately there was a negative adjustment that was done to take that quantity that was output from my production order and issue it to the job. So if I close out of here now and I take a look at my job, I can look at my ledger entries for this job, and actually, see the entries that were created. So if I go here to my job ledger entries, I can see some usage, and I can see the usage that was here from that specific production order. This all happened automatically as a part of me posting that production order. And any costs, if they were part of the bill of material components or part of the routing, they would also issue to the job. And we can see quantities. We can also see on this line here, if we drill back into the BOM planning lines, that this line is actually green. I'm not sure if you guys can see that, but here this production order is green because the demand of that BOM planning line has been satisfied by a production order, and it's been released and finished, so it's good to go. You're green. You don't have to worry about that line. So in this next part of the video, I'm going to show you creating an assembly order from the BOM planning line. So a lot of the same functionality, just a little bit different in terms of the screens that are prompted for you. So what we'll do is we'll jump back into Business Central and we'll take a look at creating an assembly order using the build to order function. So what we're going to do first thing is I'm going to go into my job setup and I'm going to make some small changes. So if I scroll down, the only kind of key difference that we would see here for assembly orders is the build order type is going to be assembly. And then even though we haven't changed the post-production job journal, we haven't changed the separate production order, the default production order status, because our build order type is assembly, those fields ultimately are going to be ignored moving forward, because we're not really dealing with production orders. We've told the system that we're now dealing with assembly orders. So if I go back into my job, I'm going to use the same build to job function that you saw previously. So I'll go into furniture and I'm going to go into my BOM planning lines. So one of the things that I failed to mention when we went through the production order was that the disposition status will update with whether or not it creates a production order or an assembly order. So as we can see here from the first example, the disposition status was prod order because that was the example of the build to job using production. So we're going to add a second line here. So I'll add the 1929. 1929. There we go. We'll add a location. We'll put in a quantity of 2 for right now. And so the same thing that I did in the first example, I'm going to, from the actions from procurement, I'm going to indicate I would like to build to job. So you can see here that I had an assembly order that was created. It gave me an ID. It indicated a quantity of 2. I have the 2 components that were part of my assembly BOM added. And now what I would do is I would run through this process the same way that I would deal with an assembly order as we go out throughout the process. So I can see here my disposition status showed me that if I'm looking for the supply order that's going to satisfy this demand line, it's going to be an assembly order. And if I scroll over to my build columns, I can see here that my build order number is that assembly order number that was created. I can see the status that it's in. And then again, as I progress through, I issue my material, I post that document, I will see the updates to the lines just as I did for the production order. So at a glance, that's the build to order function using the Sabre ETO functionality and the ability to create either production orders or assembly orders that are linked to the BOM planning lines. And that will also have the ability to be able to issue inventory and costs to the planning line so that your job ledger entries are always up to date. But as always, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us using the contact information you see here.